All right. Well, welcome everybody to episode 41 of Wicked Connected. Today we have Giver's Gain. And so I'd like to welcome Mark Friedman. Mark, definitely thank you for joining us. A pleasure to see you for the second time today. So Mark, I guess we'll kick this off like we usually do. Tell us about one recent networking event that was a standout for you.
Oh, I'll use the one we were both at today.
Perfect.
And it stood out more for what it wasn't than what it was. It tends to be, we meet every other week. It's part of a local chamber. And it's kind of the same meeting every 2 weeks. It's a great encapsulation of it's valuable to connect with these people, but the meeting itself and the process is frustrating. There's no metrics, there's no specific outcomes, there's no real goals. So it's people kind of positioning themselves. Sometimes people have an ask, sometimes they don't. It lacks the formality and structure to make it what it could be. Not that what it is bad, but it leaves a lot on the table.
Interesting.
Yeah. And tell us a little more about that. I know, Mark, I think you're certainly comparing that to another networking group that we're in. So kind of, tell us a little bit more about that and what you see as being a positive for these networking groups.
So, I guess, over the years, I mean, the gray hair kind of tells a little bit of a story. And I've earned every last piece of it. I spent 25 years in management consulting. I did turnarounds all over the world, companies that were losing a few $100,000 a day to millions of dollars a day. And I stepped into either operating roles or just figured it out and stuck with them to fix it. One of the things I did when I was turning around whole sales forces was, you've got to have purpose when you're in a meeting, right? And it's not just what you can take. It's what you bring to the conversation that matters as much, if not more than anything. Hence the title, I guess, for this episode, Giver's Gain. Too many people look at networking as a transactional experience. I'm here, let me take some air out of the room and explain who I am and what you can do for me.
Yep.
And when everybody does that, nobody's anteed into the pot. Everybody's taken from the pot, but the pot was empty to begin with.
Yep.
And the result of that is no one goes first. There's no basis for trade in there. And as I've gotten older, I've realized, one, you got to take your ego out of a networking conversation, right? It's not about what you take. It is about what you give. It's about how you come armed with, in the old days, we call it a Rolodex. Now we call it a network. You're bringing that's your backpack of value. That's your carpet bag in sales speak, right?
Yep.
When you're bringing that to the table, and as you're listening to people, it's really about how you can create meaningful connections. So, there's a professor I really like, and I had a chance. She actually spoke on my patio when I hosted my graduate school summer reunion, which is the Tepper School at Carnegie Mellon, the Professor Rosalind Chow. And she got rid of this idea of networking and said it's really more about sponsorship. Really what you're doing is you're creating meaningful connections between people that you're connected to, which is a form of sponsorship. And when you learn how to do that, you do a few things. You build trust because you're giving as opposed to asking or taking. Well, you're creating, if lack of a better term, debt on behalf of others. People don't like debt, in spite of how much people have today. And so, they want to repay that. They want to give thanks. And they may be afraid to go first, or they may not know how. So by putting in first, by taking that first step, one, you figure out who understands the game, right? And the second thing is you understand who you want to play with, and does the group have enough critical mass of those people to make it worth your time? Let's face it, time is our precious commodity.
Yep.
Right? Anything else we can get more of.
Yeah. So this is a really fascinating point that you're making, Mark, and I really appreciate it. And it's funny because I was I wonder what you think about this. I was thinking a lot over the weekend. I do this thing every once in a while where I like stop having enough calls on my calendar to feel like comfortable that I'm like be building my business or whatever. And so I just like write a list of like 150 people and then just challenge myself to send out notes to 10 people a day, which means that like right now my calendar is like blocked solid with calls and whatever. And I had a couple of calls last week with folks that I didn't necessarily I didn't have any specific asks that I was going to ask them. I was just like, I'm just going to network with these people. And I apologize, my dogs are networking upstairs. So if you hear that, that's
my neighbor's fond.
Anyway, I was networking with just people. I didn't really particularly have anything I was expecting from them. I just wanted to talk to them, and we hadn't talked in a while, and you never know, right, where these things are going to go. And it was interesting because both of these people were corporate people, and I was a corporate person for a long time, and a lot of corporate people don't network. I mean, meaning outside of sales, like marketing people, whatever, they don't network. And so the calls are sometimes weird, right? Whereas I can get on a call with somebody who's a networker. Like I got on 2 calls today with people who were clearly networkers, and we just had a lovely conversation about whatever. I don't know that we necessarily, like it wasn't necessarily that we got somewhere and there was something to do and whatever, but it didn't matter, right? It was, we were sort of exploring and listening and for, what the other person said. And so, you made the comment about having an agenda. Do you think does that apply to one-on-one calls? Because I find like sometimes you can have no agenda with a one-on-one call and it's fine, and other times you have no agenda and it's like, wow, this call was kind of weird.
Well, that's a great question, because sometimes an agenda gets in the way because you're so committed to that damn thing and checking all those boxes and saying everything you prepared that you forget to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And you forget to make the conversation organic and dynamic.
Yep.
The result is it's a speech, it's a commercial.
Right.
And when one person does that, the other person either tunes out or parries with the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So next thing you know, you've wasted 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour.
Right.
And then you're like, all of a sudden, somebody who probably could still be a valuable connection is on your do not call list. And the other thing that's happened as I've gotten a little older, there are a lot of people on my do not call list. Time is the thing I protect.
Yeah.
And as Stephen can tell you, you could get an email from me at 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. because I don't sleep. It's not that I don't have the time; it's that I'm careful how I spend it.
Right. Right. It's funny you say that too, because one of the guys that I was on the call with, like literally about, it was probably like 7 to 10 minutes into this call, and I just kept asking him questions because I've learned to do this, right? Like I've learned to listen and be curious and whatever. And about, it's probably like somewhere between minute 7 and 10 of like a 30-minute call that started 5 minutes late or something. So we're like deep into the, halfway through this call already. He goes, I feel like you're interviewing me. And I'm like,
I'm sorry.
They're thinking like, no, I'm just curious. I'm just interested in like, what you're up to. And I said that to him. But the other thing that I was thinking to myself was, and also you haven't asked me a single question in like the first.
Yeah, right.
That's when you say, well, why don't you interview me?
I don't know if you're Ted Lasso fans, but that scene where he's playing darts, be curious.
Right.
Right? No one ever asked me a question. Nobody asked if I knew how to play darts. Well, you don't ask.
Yeah,
exactly. I think there are a lot more dart players than people realize. They just don't know to ask, or they don't know the right questions to ask.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think there's value in those conversations when you are, on a one-on-one. You come in with an agenda. I think having some sort of agenda, you have to be, it's more of a loose thing. Like, hey, I'd love to get these things accomplished on a call, but also I'm not glued to it. So it helps in situations where the person isn't used to networking, so they aren't having that conversation. So you can really drive that call and try to get the most out of it. But I also think, like Mark said, time is super important. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's any shame. I know I've done it too, where you get on a networking call and about 15 minutes in, you're like, wow, like I know this person isn't going to bring value to me. I don't think I'm going to bring them much value too. And you can cut the call short. Just be like, hey, like, it sounds like me and you maybe not aren't super aligned in our businesses, which, you know, I'm happy to give you 15 minutes back in your time in your day. And I've done that because, you know, sometimes you have to read the room a little bit.
Yeah.
And it almost hurts your feelings when they're like, yeah, actually, I'd love 15 minutes back. But you know what? Then you know you didn't waste another 15 minutes of your time too.
So a mentor of mine gave me the term for that. It's like they're the oxygen thieves, right?
Yeah,
They're using oxygen other people vitally need.
totally.
And not the nicest term, but it fits sometimes. And I think you're absolutely right, Amelia. You've got to step back and say, hey, you know, this isn't productive for either of us, and we're both going to end up on a do not call list.
Right. Right. Well, and if that person feels like you're interviewing them and you challenge them and say, well, I'm sorry, like I just wanted to get to know you. What do you want to know about me?
Right. I think that's right.
And I think part of active listening sometimes is reading between the lines and listening to what they're not saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I get a lot of people that reach out to me, say, oh, I'd love to spend some time with you, get to know you a little bit. And my response is, that's great. I'd love to. What would you like to accomplish? And make them think about it in advance. And if they want to pitch me on something, I have to decide if I have any interest in what they might be pitching in any flavor, form, shape, or whatever. And if so, then I usually respond with a way to bound it. So that it's not, you know, I don't want to get involved into a sales pitch or, I'm really going to meet with somebody with a broker that's offering me the free dinner at Davio's, right? I'm just not going there, or something like that. But if somebody says, hey, I've got a specific question. I saw in your background that you've done X, Y, and Z. I wanted to better understand that. Maybe you can help me sort something out. Those are great get to know you calls, right? Because then I can turn around and ask similar questions of them. Tell me about the issue. Tell me about your experience. Tell me why it's a struggle. How does it manifest itself? And then I can shift into that sponsorship mode of all the people I have on my Rolodex that may be able to help them even if I can't.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that you say that, because I haven't. One of my many hats is that I coach people, and I've been coaching a lot of job seekers recently. And job seeking is one of the most challenging times to be networking, often because the people who are job seeking have never networked in their lives, and so now it's like, well, now you're just drawing on. You're trying to get. And one of the things I say to them is, I was like, if you can try to connect with somebody and say, can you, in essence, you say, can you help me get a job? It's not that they don't want to help you. It's that they can't help you get a job because they don't have a job to give you. And the frustration they're feeling with you is not that they're annoyed that you're asking for help. They're annoyed that you're asking for something they don't have. And then they feel bad because they can't give it to you. And now they're going to project that annoyance at you. And so my whole point is, like, to your point, is like, ask people, like, hey, I'm in the middle of a job transition. I was wondering if I could get on a call and get some advice from you, because everybody can give advice. Right. But if you say, can I get on a call because there's a job and whatever, or do you have any jobs or whatever, and then they're going to be like, no, I don't want to talk to you. The same person, just not feeling like they can help you. And so I think some of it is just that, how do you approach the person?
There's a definite art and science of asking meaningful questions. What frustrates me is people do all their preparation to get the questions right. They forget to listen to the answers.
Yeah.
And that's when I take the exact approach you outlined, Amelia, which is, let me give you some of your time back.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And
no, there's nothing wrong with it at all.
Yep. Interesting. Well, I guess one thing we should do, of course, before we get too far along here, Mark, is tell us more about what you do, right? We should probably ask you a question.
Okay. Well, I told you a little bit about my background. I spent about 25 years fixing other people's problems in the corporate world. North America, South America, and Europe, and that was great. it built on a background. I have an OR background and a quantitative finance and quantitative marketing background. I got tired of it. You know, it was fun. I was good at it. I also kept waking up in emergency rooms because I was burned out. But you know, I got into elder care because I saw a need in the community. I was very active when I lived on the North Shore of Massachusetts, the Jewish community there, and I saw well-intentioned people giving bad advice about how to age in there. And a friend of mine was starting a business at the time, and I said, well, I'll back it. And then I got into, you know, we built that business. We then split it in half. That's my current business about 12 years ago. And I built an expertise on the aging process. And my company's mission, Senior Helpers Boston and South Shore, part of the Senior Helpers franchise, is to change the trajectory of aging for our clients and their families. And we do that. And my title is CEO, but it stands for Chief Education Officer, because most people make decisions about aging in a crisis, a slip, a fall, an illness, a death, something like that. And the whole world shifts, and now they have to rapidly make changes. So the best decision they can make is not as good as they would have made if they had time and the ability to really process it. So we try to get ahead of the issues, but we also have enough skill after 16 years in this space, and my team is more experienced than me even, is, you know, okay, you're in the crisis. Well, we know what not to do, and we know how to do the things you should do to make the best of a bad situation or non-optimal situation. So we built an agency that is able to do that and respond to the anomalies in the marketplace, the fallacies of the marketplace, as well as the needs of our clients. Just before this call, as an example, we have a client who's very complicated, and the spouse just is not willing to let it stabilize. So just like in networking that you were talking about, Amelia, this is a client that I no longer want as a client.
Yeah.
I can't help them.
Right.
So in all business relationships, you have to have two willing parties, whether it's a networking conversation or ongoing relationship. And if you remember that, then you have to think about, well, what do I want to stay as part of this relationship, and what do I bring? What does the other person want, and what do they bring? And is there sufficient match, right? It's all about Venn diagrams. Is there enough overlap that it's worthwhile for both of us to play? And if not, treat it accordingly. If I can help the other person, they can't really help me, I'll invest accordingly. Not that I'm going to withhold, but if they're gracious about it, I'm happy to still invest.
I feel like I learn this lesson every other week.
We all do.
The hard way.
We could put notes all over our computer screen on Post-its, and we'd still read them every week.
Especially like in a business situation, because you're so like, you know, and you know, I've got two young businesses that I'm building. I have Stephen, you do as well, whatever, is that, you know, you're sort of like, but it's money. It's like, but no, that's not good money, right? Like, I can't work with you if I can't help you. And actually, one of the things, I'll sort of build on what you're saying. I think one of the things is, if the other person doesn't value your help, then they're not a good client, right? Like you can do anything. Like, there are lots of people who are like, yeah, I just want to pay you and you basically do what I tell you and whatever. I'm like, yeah, you can go find an intern to do that, but that's not what I do. That's not my expertise, right? That's not what I bring to the table. And so I think you're right. It's sort of that two-way street of, does each party value what the other person brings? And if they don't both, and if not everybody's valuing it, even if there's a willingness to transact, it's still not a good transaction.
So, you know, I've learned you have to, especially in the franchise space, you know, I've learned this. So many people that get into the franchise space are bought a job, right? They bought a franchise to buy a job, as opposed to build a company. When you buy a job, you think of it in terms of the impact on your paycheck. When you build a company, you think about it in terms of sustainable value. And relationships are very much the same way. If you're thinking about the immediate gratification of what transactions to you, as opposed to the long-term value and sustainability of that value that you're bringing, it's a better, bigger solution, even if it might be a little bit of a long game, right? Too much networking and all these networking groups, and don't get me started on speed networking. I'll lose my temper and say things I can't say on you. You know, is you know,
I want to ask you now, but okay.
Yeah, now I need to, we can take
now
it
you
off.
got it out, right?
Cut off my-
Well, I'll summarize it very simply. It's stupid. Just hand out business cards and move on.
You're not wrong there.
It's the most moronic thing I've ever seen. We're going to spend 2 minutes. We'll each get 90 or 60 seconds. And, I'm still shaking hands after 30 seconds, getting to know somebody, find out if they're genuine, and unless they have one of those horrible handshakes, in which case I'm already out the door. But, you've really got to get away from that idea of transaction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got to think in terms of value and relationship. And that's an exchange, right? As opposed to over time, as opposed to a single instance. I'm not buying batteries at the grocery store, right? I'm trying to do something that's more substantive. Why? Because I'm valuing my time and I want to invest it where there's long-term value to come out of it.
Yep.
It's why I love the networking group that Stephen and I are part of on Thursday morning. It's 7 a.m. Nobody in the world wants a 7 a.m. meeting,
No.
right? But we go, and I love it, and I'm charged after I leave it, and that doesn't happen very often anymore. And it's because we track. It's all about the philosophy of today's session: givers gain, right? We track referrals you've made to other people, not referrals that they made to you.
Right.
We talk about in the end of the meeting of, what have we done for others in the group?
Yep.
It's non-competitive, which means you're okay sharing good, bad, and questions.
Yep.
Right? You make meaningful connections. We monitor how many people connected with each other over the course of the previous week because it matters. You have to create that ongoing, meaningful connection. I met Stephen because of his Stephen on Court, but I've learned there's so much more to Stephen than a bottle of wine, right? Or a case of wine in some cases.
A good bottle.
That wine is a means to an end, right?
Yeah.
The thing you posted on LinkedIn, I don't know if it was this week, or I just saw an old post about that. It creates a platform of conversation.
Yep.
That's less formal than what can you do for me? Here's what I can do for you. Let's trade cards. Let's set a meeting, and we'll book the revenue. It's much more organic, and that's one of the things I really liked about that post. But it's true in general of good networking. I'm a member of some industry networking groups, or I should say, I was a member of a few industry networking groups, and I don't go because they're a waste of my time. One, there are 15 of my competitors at every one of them. I'm not going to say anything of value. Right. And it's very cliquey because the industry is, it's like a round of musical chairs. And so I send my outreach person to those meetings because you still need to have a presence.
Yep.
My head would fly off if I had to sit in there for an hour. And I'm paying for her time. I'm managing my time.
Right.
No, that's fair.
Well, I think so. Actually, I want to jump back to something and I realize this is less about networking, but maybe it will be connected to networking. I am actually really fascinated about what is it from you were talking about seniors and how to age well and so forth. Is there a secret to this that you would be willing to share?
I mean, I'm happy to give you our guidebook, and I'm giving you a copy. But there is, and it's about staying one. You only have to be one step ahead of the crisis, right? But it's understanding what those steps are. So most people start with dealing with the crisis. Well, really, what you want to do just in advance of that, I've done this with my parents. My wife is using our methodology with her parents. Is what's most important to you? My agency was the first in the country to be age-friendly care certified at home. And it starts with the question, what matters most to you as the person, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then what are the concerns you have about that? And what trade-offs are you willing to make and what priority? You got to get a basis of that. Document it. Because, for example, if you're the child and you're helping your parent, my parents are almost 90 years old. We help them. I can't help them get what they want, even if I don't agree with it, if I don't know what it is. I can't help them make decisions if I don't understand the trade-offs and the way they think about them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can't be a good partner in that conversation if they don't understand what their ask of me means, so that they can be fair about, or it can be an honest conversation, as opposed to a burden. And that's the technical term, burden of care. Understanding what that is and how to manage it is key. The role of communication, clarity of communication, specificity of communication. So that's the second thing. The third piece is to understand that it's more than a will and an estate. A will and an estate plan is great when you die. What about between now and then? There's got to be something that matters, right? Right. Then it's about understanding options, because nobody understands what really happens. Nobody understands our industry until you're in the throes of hell.
Right.
Nobody really understands what assisted living is until they've experienced what independent living is, what a CCRC is. There's a ton of acronyms and everything else, but you can get that baseline of education. Once you have those 4 ingredients pulled together, your set of priorities and trade-offs that you're willing to make and how you think about them, understanding your ask, right? Understanding the 360-degree view of the things that you need to have to be prepared and so that others can help you, and to understand what your options for the future are, then you can revisit those priorities and trade-offs and create a plan. If you're able to do that, you can be very successful on a non-existent budget or on a very wealthy budget. All those things factor into it, into what matters. But most people think, I did my will, I did my estate, I'm going to spend all the money, I'm going to go into a nursing home on Medicaid. Well, I hate to tell you this, it ain't going to work. Right? So if you go through that plan, and we developed it, people don't want to be talked at. Sorry if I'm doing that. They want to be applied in there. So the book that we created actually has worksheets. It's like one of those homework books that we did in high school to learn how to do partial differential equations, of teaching you through it step by step and filling out the worksheets. Well, I did partial differential equations.
Yes.
But it guides you through that process at your own pace with the right explanatory content, not too much, not too little.
Yep.
So you can do it. You can do it with others, for others, on behalf of others. You can do it for yourself.
That is well, thank you for doing that, because that was fascinating. I'm really appreciate that. We have flown through half an hour. That's always happens to us. So Mark, we as we mentioned, we always like to kind of wrap up by having everybody share what's one cool networking event you'll be going to in the near future. So you're welcome to share an event you're going to, share an event you're hosting, anything you want, but we'll let you go first.
Well, one I just hosted was the summer reunion of my graduate school, the Tepper School. It was a blast, because we had alumni, students that ranged from 36 years or 37 years out to ones that were just about to go in. That was really fascinating, because the dynamic was just so rich in there. What I'm looking forward to is our Thursday morning, 7 a.m. I love it. At 5 a.m., I'm always up at 5 a.m., but at 5 a.m., I'm up and I'm energized to get to that meeting. And exciting to say what I've done for others that week, and excited to hear what others have done for others in the group, even if it doesn't include me.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Before I give my answer to the question, Mark, what's the best place for people to connect with or reach out to you?
The best place for people to connect with me is on LinkedIn. It also gives people a rough idea of my background. I've had a variety of careers, and they can look at it and say, hey, talking to that person could be valuable, and I might have something to add to him as well.
Awesome. Well, for me, I actually, because of what I was talking about earlier, I have so many one-on-ones this month that I kind of have I don't have a lot of big events coming up. But Stephen, I don't know if you still need a sub, but maybe I'll go to your Thursday meeting.
Well, I will for next week.
All right. So maybe now that I know Mark, I'll join.
So there it is. So now you're going to get energized at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Jeff, you're going to be so psyched.
I will say the last couple of days I've been getting myself up at 6 in order to go and work out. So 5 still seems early, but anyway, I'll make it work.
It gets easier. You just kind of peel it back every time. I think I got up at 3:45 this morning to have my Outlook crash. So the good thing is, as Mark knows, we got a guy for that, and he's already on it. And he and I were having a nice conversation at 7:30 this morning, already starting the resolution.
Nice.
So.
Well, Stephen, what do you got coming up?
Well, I'll go with the after croquet event that I have in Newport on Thursday. And so one of our former guests, Jen Smith, of course, Jeff, Amelia, but she and her company are hosting an event at the Landing in Newport. And so they have a whole daytime croquet thing, whatever. I will not be going for that, but I will be going for the after party, basically. And it's a ton of folks in construction, architecture, all the related industries there. So it should be interesting.
That sounds fun.
Amelia, take it.
I have 2 events I'm going, or I have a couple and I have a lot of in-person lunches, coffees and stuff, but I actually am going to an alumni event tomorrow. I don't normally go to the St. Lawrence alumni events, but I had someone text me and ask if I was going. It's down the street from his house. And I was like, I looked at the list, was like, I might as well just go and say hi, or because that's actually, there's no one my age going. It's all the, people 10, 15 years older than me. So I thought it might be a good opportunity to network with some alumni that were a little bit more advanced in their careers than me. And then I am going to a Greentown Lab event on Thursday. So they always have cool events and they have really cool companies. So I always love going and just listening to the cool things people are doing in the green tech space. It's every time I'm like, wow, that seems so simple, but also so cool. Why didn't I think of that?
Very cool.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. Mark, this has been absolutely terrific. And I'm sorry, my computer just did something weird. So that's why I looked startled. But anyway, it's been absolutely great to have you on. This was a terrific conversation. And it was great to spend some time with you. And we'll see everyone next week.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. Thanks so much, Mark.
Thank you.